Hi everyone, it's Jung here, and today I'm sharing a couple of cards that I made using the Spellbinders May 2019 Large Die of the Month Club Kit. You get all the dies that I'm showing here, and they make the cutest cards because the larger dies are layers of a cake, and you get all these accessories that I'm showing here. You get candles, you get flowers, you get little sparklers, and you get the numbers 0 through 9 and the UR so you can spell out UR number 1. You even get these cute little flags that I know are very popular on cake nowadays, so this is a great set to have. Alright, let's get started. So for my birthday card, I decided that I wanted to make a light pink to white ombre cake, and so I'm just going to use some white cardstock and some light pink ink. This one is Distress Oxide and Spun Sugar, one of my favorite colors. And I'm just using one of my old makeup brushes, and I'm just going to softly ink blend a little bit onto this white cardstock. I actually made 2 cards using this kit, but since I made them so similarly, I'm just going to show you one in this video. I'll definitely be sharing some photos of my second card at the end of the video, so stay tuned. Alright, so I'm going to set that ink panel aside to dry, and while it's drying, I'm going to clean off my surface and then start working on the other elements of the card. I know I want to cut out a 3 and a 6 because it's my sister's 36th birthday, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that out of gold glitter cardstock. I always keep even the smallest scraps of cardstock, especially glitter cardstock, because sometimes all you need is a little piece. And look how cute that 3 and 6 turned out. Next, I'm going to work on the cake layers, and I'm going to just cut down that ink blended panel just so it'll be easier to work with. I will position the outer piece of the die that actually cuts the outside of the cake layer, and then I'm going to position the decorative piece on the inside, and I'm going to try and center it as best as I can. And I'll go ahead and send it through the die cutting machine. The decorative piece on the large cake layer has some scallops and a lot of little holes, and so I'm going to bring over some leftover packaging that I use as a little trash can, and I'm going to poke out the big ones with my fingernails, and then I'm going to use my Spellbinders tool to kind of help poke out the rest of the little elements. Now I'm going to work on the next cake layer. This is a smaller one, and again, it has the outer piece and the decorative piece, and I will center the decorative piece as best as I can, and then run it through the die cutting machine. And on the smaller cake layer, instead of the scallop detail, it has a V-shaped detail. And again, I'll use my Spellbinders tool to help me get rid of all those little dots. On the metal dies for the outer portion of the cake layers, there is a score line on each side. So I'm going to gently fold it with my fingernails and my fingers, and then I'm going to use a bone folder to really crease it in. I'm also going to use my bone folder to curve the cardstock. I like the shape it gives the cake layers, and it helps the cake to kind of pop off the card. Now I'm going to kind of lay everything out to see how I want things to look. I did a bunch of die cutting, and I cut those flowers out of a light purple, a dark purple, a blue, and a pink cardstock. And then I also cut out the leaves from light green and dark green cardstock, and those were all just scraps from my stash. Now I'm going to get started on the background panel. I wanted to choose a color that would really help the cake and the flowers to pop, and so I decided that I would use yellow, and the yellow I'm using is Distress Oxide and Squeeze Lemonade. And I'm just using the same brush that I used earlier, and I'm going to lightly ink blend onto white cardstock. Then I'm going to use this sunray stencil and just add a bit more yellow, and you'll be able to see the pattern once I lift the stencil up. I actually used this color and this stencil on my husband's birthday card a couple of weeks ago, and I loved it so much that I wanted to use it again. Again, I made sure to clean off my work surface and my brush, and now I'm using the Distress Sprayer to sprinkle on some water onto my background panel. Because of the ink properties, it kind of bleaches the ink where the water touches it, and then you just kind of dab it off with a paper towel. I'm going to go ahead and use my heat tool to dry off the panel. I'm kind of in a hurry because I'm actually making this card the day of my sister's birthday. So I want to get it done and have everybody in my family sign it. Usually I'll have a card already done, but when I got this die set in the mail, I knew I had to create something for my sister's birthday with it. Even though it was last minute, it was just too perfect not to use. Okay, so what I just did was made a card panel to A2 size, which is 5.5 by 4.25 inches. And then I'll trim my ink blended background panel just shy of A2 size, so a little bit of the card base will be peeking through. I'm going to use fun foam to mount my background panel to the card base, and I'm just going to trim it down to size. I just want it slightly smaller than the background panel. I'm going to use that same piece of fun foam that I just trimmed, and I'm going to shape my flowers with them. I know there are flower shaping tools out there. In fact, I know there's one tip that goes onto this Spellbinder Tool-in-One tool, but I don't have it yet. I know I want to get it, so I'm just kind of making do. I'm using the circle part of the push pin that belongs in my fine liner and glue bottle, and you can see what a difference it makes to shape the flowers. It kind of creates a cupped shape. Next, I'm going to bend up the leaves. There's a tiny score line right down the middle. It's hard to tell on camera, but I'm just going to use that score line and my fingernails to bend up the leaves and create dimension. I am attaching double-sided tape to both sides of the fun foam panel, and then I will attach it to the back of the background piece. Once the fun foam is attached, I'm going to work on adhering the cake layers, and I believe my camera overheated and shut off, so you missed a little bit of it. I just added some really thin double-sided tape to the two little flaps, and that's how they will attach to the background. And you can see the two little flaps that I'm talking about on the smaller cake layer, and that's where I added the double-sided tape. So I'm going to attach the 3 and the 6 to the back of the top cake layer. I could have attached it to the background, but I kind of wanted it to be floating off the background along with the cake layers. So to make it a little bit easier on myself, I'm going to attach it now before I attach that cake layer to the background. I was trying to decide what to do about a sentiment, and I didn't really leave much room for a big sentiment, but I really wanted to use this brush script happy birthday, and so I decided to put it on the inside of the card instead. Once again, the camera cut me off, but the stamps that I used was the Spellbinder Sentimental Words, and I used archival black ink and my Misty stamp positioning tool. Now that the glue on the 3 and 6 are dry, I can adhere this cake layer to my background as well. And here's what I was talking about the really thin double-sided tape on the two little flaps on the edges of the cake. I'm going to try and line up the top layer of the cake and center it as best as I can to the bottom layer of the cake. But even if I don't get it perfectly centered, it'll be fine. I'll just add the flowers to the side where there's more space. I just want to make sure that all the edges are glued down tight. And then I'll kind of be laying the flowers out on the cake to see what looks good, what pattern I want them in, how many flowers do I want. I'm also making sure I like the colors of the flowers. You can see in the little cup to the top left that I have some yellow and coral colored flowers cut as well. But I really do like the way these purple, pink, and blue flowers look on the cake. So now I'm going to take all the flowers off, and then I am going to attach the tiny flowers. They could be used as the centers of these flowers or just smaller flowers themselves. I figured it would be easier to glue the small flowers to these bigger flowers first, rather than gluing on the bigger flowers and then trying to glue the smaller flowers after. I hope that made sense. So I was just about to glue these flowers down when I realized that it would probably be a better idea to adhere the panel to the card base first. That way I wouldn't have to worry about doing this later with all those delicate flowers already attached. I'm going to use my fingers and press lightly, and then I'm going to use my bone folder to press under the cake layers just to make sure everything is fully attached. Now I'm going to start gluing on the flowers. It's a great idea to have tweezers and maybe some kind of pickup tool. I'm using the Crystal Katana. I've seen Nicole Spohr use it as well as Yana Smokula, and I decided to pick one up myself and give it a try. In fact, I have two other pickup tools that I've used. I've used the silhouette version. It has kind of like a silly putty on the end. And I've used a bead pickup tool as well. Once I've glued on all my flowers, I'm going to try and figure out where I want the leaves to go. I don't want the card to get too busy, so I think I'm just going to add 2 leaves to each flower cluster. And I want to make sure to glue the leaves on so they still have dimension and texture. Okay, so here's my final card. I really love the way it turned out, and my sister loved it too. I really love the way the cake pops up off the card, and all those little flowers add just the perfect amount of details. Here is the second card that I created, and this one would work great for a wedding card. The sentiment says best day ever, and I got it from the Relax and Enjoy sticker sentiments that I got from a previous card kit. I really love how this card turned out as well. The pearls just add the perfect touch to a wedding card. Make sure you check out the Spellbinders Die of the Month kits. I will leave a link in the info bar below. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And if you liked my video, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye, everybody.